Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Three's In. So on the 24th of April, 1970 at 0800, I found myself sitting at a table in room 45 in Hangar 12 at Randolph Air Force Base. That was our first day of undergraduate pilot training. So the way the room was arranged is you walked in and you actually walked into the front of the room, and then you turned left and walked up a series of platforms, and the tables were arranged on either side of the central aisle. So there was about 70 of us, as I indicated earlier, sitting there, bannering, if you will, all excited, all second and first lieutenants. There were a couple of captains in the room as students prior service. Like myself, I was a first lieutenant at that time, but at any rate, we're all sitting in there. It was an exciting period. And finally the door opens again, and in walks this short little major dressed in his khaki uniform with shooter sunglasses on. And from the very moment he opened his mouth, I knew this was going to be quite a character. So he walks in, and he says, "Good morning, gentlemen." He says, "My name is Booger Malone." He says, "You may call me by my first name, Major." He says, "I'm here to welcome you boys to Randolph Air Force Base pilot training." He says, "Now I'm the chief of academics here." He says, "And you college boys might have heard," he says, "that 80% is passing." He says, "Let me say a little bit about 80%. He says, "If you graduate with 80%, he says, in academics, he says, you're probably going to find yourself in the right seat of a B-52 jet bomber." And he says, "I want you to think about something." He says, "Some night over the top of Hanoi," he says, "if you're flying a mission over there and a 50 caliber bullet comes up through the bottom of that airplane, blows that lieutenant colonel's brains all over the roof of the cockpit," he says, "you think that 80% is going to get you and your boys home?" He says, "So you might want to think about opening the books." Well, about this time, door opens and in walks two more students, we'll call them. And Booger was just shocked. "Whoa, wait a minute here." So he looks over, and these two knotheads walk in. They say, "Good morning, sir," and they just walk in and walk up the aisle, find a seat, and sit down. So Booger looks over, and he says, "Which one of you boys is the commander of this here group?" Well, that would have been Ken Anderson, so Ken stands up and says, "That'd be me, sir." And he says, "I want them two boys' names." He says, "I'm going to have a piece of their ass when this thing is over. You get that?" He says, "You don't show up late for a formal meeting like this." And so that was our first introduction to UPT. And every 6 weeks we'd have a new class come in to room 45 there in Hangar 12, and you kind of got an idea that you knew what was coming. So late in the program, when we started feeling a little bit cocky, there was a theater room or a projection room behind room 45 that you could get into, and you could hear everything that was being said. So a few of us snuck in there as one of the later classes was coming on. And as he's starting in that B-52 part, we started hymning the battle hymn of the Republic, just to add a little bit of spice to the presentation. At any rate, I never flew with Booger. I know he spent a good portion of the rest of his career there at Randolph. Might as well go ahead and tell you about this. He was a 38 IP, as it turns out, and one day he was out doing a stall series in the area, and our areas were adjacent to the Navy chase basic training areas. And it was not uncommon for the Navy guys in their T2s to come into our areas looking for T-38s to bounce. Well, our IPs would take control of the aircraft right away, and the fight was on. But there was no way in hell we could ever turn with a T2. There's just no way. Straight wing against our swept wing, and we had to keep so much smash in order just to keep flying. But at any rate, it didn't. They didn't keep the guys from trying. So this one day, Booger's out there doing a stall series, and one of these Navy T2s came in, and from a perch dove down on their aircraft. Well, the guy misjudged and he hit Booger, took off one of his wingtips. So Booger calls, when he got control of the aircraft, just took off the outboard maybe 24 inches of the wingtip. So Booger gets the aircraft under control. He calls back to the SOF. He says, "Copper hit!" He says, "That son of a bitch just hit me." Well, that was the first time Copperhead and the squadron. Copperhead was our ops center. That was the first time Copperhead or the squadron knew anything about a midair. He says, "He hit me." He says, "I can still fly it though." He says, "I'm going to bring it home." He says, "That son of a bitch." And as they tell the story, the more he was into it, the higher his voice got. Well, anyway, he got back and landed okay. But that's the story of our beloved Major Booger Malone. Thanks again.